I was in the ICU recovering from my third chemo surgery when my son's wife called and said, "We're not bringing the kids to see you. Hospitals are traumatizing." My son added, "They'll remember you how you were." I held the phone in silence, hooked to machines. A nurse wiped my tears. 6 months later, they called from the ER, but the name on the emergency contact form now said Patricia Henley, my neighbor. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe, and also, drop a comment below. What's one life lesson you think everyone should learn before it's too late? Share your thoughts, thanks. My name is Rose Campbell. I'm 73 years old, and I've lived in Cedar Falls, Iowa, most of my life. I worked at Lincoln Elementary School as the head secretary for 35 years. People always said I was the steady one when chaos erupted, the woman who kept things running when the principal forgot parent conferences or when children showed up crying because they'd lost their lunch money. I liked being needed. I raised my only son Benedict, alone after his father walked out when Benedict was 8. I remember that night like it happened yesterday. We were watching Jeopardy together on our old plaid couch when my husband stood up during a commercial and said, "I'm done pretending this is the life I wanted." Then he left. I don't even remember what I said back, just the sound of Benedict quietly sobbing in his bedroom afterward. After that, it was just Benedict and me. I never remarried. I dated briefly, there was Tom from the hardware store and Bill from church, but nothing ever felt right. Benedict was my world. I gave him everything, my time, my energy, my dreams. I took on weekend shifts at the school district office to pay for his baseball gear, his band camp, his senior trip to Washington, D.C. When he got into Iowa State on a partial scholarship, I helped with textbooks and dorm fees. I remember skipping my own dentist appointments so his tuition check wouldn't bounce. When Benedict graduated and met Pamela, she seemed pleasant enough at first. She worked in marketing for some tech company in Des Moines. Always polite, always said "Thank you, Mrs. Campbell" in that careful way that felt rehearsed. I tried to stay out of their business, but something about her felt calculating. Not mean exactly, just cold. I chalked it up to generational differences. Benedict seemed happy, so I smiled through holiday dinners and wedding planning. They married and had 2 children, Connor, now 9, and Lily, 7. Being a grandmother was the best part of my retirement. I spoiled them rotten. I knitted them matching scarves, bought them picture books from the used bookstore, and made chocolate chip pancakes every Sunday morning. I never missed a birthday or school play. When Pamela returned to work full-time, I was the one picking up the kids after school, helping with homework at my kitchen table. Nobody ever asked, I just showed up. That was my life. Or so I thought, until the cancer came back for the 3rd time, and everything I believed about family crumbled in a sterile hospital room. The day of my surgery arrived like a gray October morning, cold and unwelcoming. I was wheeled into the operating room at 7:15 a.m., my stomach twisted with more than just pre-surgery nerves. The oncologist had explained that this 3rd procedure would be the most invasive yet. They needed to remove the remaining tumor tissue, and recovery would be lengthy. I'd told Benedict the details 3 weeks prior. He'd nodded and said, "We'll figure something out, Mom." Pamela hadn't said anything at all. I woke up in the ICU feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. Tubes snaked from my arms, machines beeped on both sides of my bed, and my throat felt raw from the breathing tube. The nurse, a kind woman named Linda, told me the surgery had gone well, no complications, clean margins. I nodded and drifted back into medicated sleep, my phone clutched in my palm, waiting. The next few days blurred together in a haze of pain medication and small indignities. I couldn't eat solid food. I couldn't walk to the bathroom alone. I needed help with everything, including my dignity. But I kept that phone close, expecting Benedict to call, hoping Pamela might bring the kids for just a brief visit. Connor had drawn me a get-well card before my last surgery, a crayon picture of us baking cookies together. I'd kept it taped to my refrigerator for months. Nothing came. No calls, no visits, no text messages. On the 4th day, my phone finally rang. Pamela's voice came through flat and emotionless, like she was reading from a script. "Hi Rose. I wanted to let you know we won't be bringing Connor and Lily to the hospital. Hospitals are traumatizing for children. It's not appropriate for them to see you in this condition." I was so stunned I couldn't respond. Then Benedict's voice came on the line, speaking to me like I was a child who needed something obvious explained. "Mom, we just think it's better if they remember you when you were healthy and strong, not like this." The words hit me harder than the cancer ever had. I whispered okay, because that's all I could manage, and the line went dead. I didn't cry aloud, just let quiet tears slip down my cheeks until Linda noticed and gently wiped them away. She squeezed my hand without saying a word. It was more kindness than I'd received from my own family. They never visited during my 2-week hospital stay. When I was finally discharged, it was Patricia Henley, my neighbor of 15 years, who picked me up. She brought homemade chicken soup, changed my surgical dressings, and stayed overnight the first few nights to make sure I didn't fall getting to the bathroom. Benedict never came by once. I stayed quiet about it all. I didn't demand apologies or explanations. But something inside me began to rot, not from the cancer, but from the realization that the son I'd sacrificed everything for saw me as a burden the moment I became inconvenient. 3 months passed in a strange, hollow silence. Benedict sent exactly one text message, a group photo of Connor at his Little League game with no personal note attached. I replied with a heart emoji. He didn't respond. I stopped dropping by their house on Elm Street. I stopped offering to babysit on date nights. I pulled back quietly, testing whether they'd notice my absence. They didn't. During those long winter months, I made some practical decisions. I visited my lawyer, Harold Brennan, and updated my will. I removed Benedict as my emergency contact and medical power of attorney, replacing him with Patricia. She'd shown more genuine care in 2 weeks than my son had in 2 years. Harold raised his eyebrows but didn't ask questions. Small-town lawyers see family drama more often than most people realize. Then came the call that changed everything. It was a Thursday in March. I was reading on my front porch, enjoying the first warm afternoon of spring, when my phone rang. The voice was brisk and professional. Cedar Falls General Hospital. "We're looking for Rose Campbell. You're listed as the emergency contact for Benedict Campbell. Actually, we have conflicting information here. An older file shows you, but recent updates list Pamela Campbell and Patricia Henley." My heart started racing. What happened to Benedict? "Minor car accident on Highway 20. He's fine, just some bruises, but we need to verify contact information. The current file shows Patricia Henley as backup emergency contact." I hung up and walked straight to Patricia's house. She was already at her door, looking uncomfortable and confused. "I didn't know Rose," she said immediately. "I didn't ask to be put on any forms. Maybe Benedict just assumed since I helped during your recovery." I felt like I couldn't breathe. My own son had replaced me, his mother, with my neighbor. The woman who'd stepped in when he'd stepped out. I went home and sat in my darkened living room for hours, not crying, not yelling, just processing the magnitude of what had happened. Something clicked into place that night. I was done waiting to be loved. I was done hoping they'd remember I existed. From now on, I was going to take care of myself first. And whether they knew it or not, they just set in motion a chain of events they couldn't undo. 2 weeks after discovering Patricia's name on Benedict's emergency contact form, she came over with banana bread and a troubled expression. "I need to tell you something," she said, settling into my kitchen chair. "Benedict came by yesterday." I set down my coffee cup carefully. "What for?" "He asked if I could pick up Connor and Lily from school next week. Pamela has a business trip to Chicago, and he has client meetings," he said. Patricia paused, looking uncomfortable. "He said you were too unpredictable now. That he couldn't risk depending on you anymore." The word unpredictable hit me like a slap. I sat there, my face going numb, while Patricia quickly added, "I told him no. I said I had my own commitments." Too unpredictable. Let's talk about unpredictable. Was it predictable that I'd raise a boy alone for 20 years, give him my entire life, then get tossed aside the moment I needed support? Was it predictable that I'd be treated like a liability the second I got too sick to babysit or bake birthday cakes? I started paying closer attention after that conversation. What I discovered made my blood run cold. Pamela had been systematically erasing me from their lives for months, maybe years. It started with small things I dismissed at the time, changing holiday plans at the last minute, not inviting me to Connor's school science fair, claiming they already had enough help when I'd offered to bring food to Lily's class party. I'd let it slide, thinking she'd warm up to me eventually. But it went deeper than social exclusion. Through careful observation and a few discreet inquiries, I learned that my name had been completely removed from the children's school emergency contact lists. I used to be listed as an authorized pickup person. Now Patricia was listed alongside Pamela's parents from Waterloo. It was as if I'd died and nobody had bothered to tell me. The most devastating discovery came through Benedict's sister-in-law Michelle, who lived in Cedar Rapids and rarely visited. She called out of the blue one evening, her voice tight with concern. "Rose, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's been talk in the family. Pamela's been telling people you're showing early signs of dementia. She says that's why you weren't at Connor's birthday party last month, why Benedict has had to take a step back from involving you with the kids." My stomach dropped to my feet. What? She's claiming you forget conversations, mix updates, call the children by wrong names. I don't believe it for a second, but others are starting to buy into it. I was speechless. I'd never exhibited any of those symptoms. I'd never even been to Connor's birthday party because I hadn't been invited, a fact I could prove with the absence of any invitation in my meticulously organized calendar. "I figured you should know what's being said," Michelle continued. "I don't know what her endgame is, but spreading lies about someone's mental health isn't right." After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. They weren't just pushing me out, they were building a narrative to justify it. When I finally disappeared from their lives completely, they could tell themselves and everyone else that it wasn't abandonment, I was just fading away due to age-related decline. But I wasn't fading. I was watching, listening, and documenting everything. And they had no idea what was coming next. After Michelle's devastating phone call, I couldn't sleep for 3 days. The weight of their deception pressed down on me like a physical force. They were systematically destroying my reputation to cover their tracks, and I realized I needed concrete proof of my mental competency before their lies spread any further. I made an appointment with Dr. Peterson, my longtime physician, and requested a comprehensive cognitive evaluation. She looked puzzled but didn't ask many questions. We spent 2 hours doing memory tests, problem-solving exercises, and motor skill assessments. When the results came back, my scores were actually above average for my age group. "I see no signs of cognitive decline, Rose," Dr. Peterson said, reviewing the paperwork. "Your mind is sharp as ever. Why did you want this evaluation?" I didn't answer directly. I just asked for everything in writing, 3 copies. One went into my fireproof document box, one to Harold Brennan, my lawyer, and the third I sealed in an envelope with Benedict's name and left with Patricia for safekeeping. "If anyone ever questions my mental state," I told Patricia, "give this to whoever needs to see it." But I didn't stop there. I started keeping a detailed journal, documenting every missed visit, every declined invitation, every time I'd offered help and been brushed aside. I wasn't planning to take anyone to court, I just wanted a record in case they tried to rewrite history later. Meanwhile, Patricia kept getting little requests from Benedict. Could she help with school pickup? Could she watch the kids on Saturday so he and Pamela could have couple time? He was always polite, even charming. I remembered that side of him from when he was young. But it was purely transactional. He wanted convenience, not connection. The breaking point came in May, during Connor's 9th birthday. I used to bake his cake every year, a chocolate monster cake with green frosting that he'd named the dinosaur cake. This year, I wasn't even invited to the party. I saw photos on Facebook later, store-bought cake from Hy-Vee, plastic decorations, Pamela's parents prominently featured in every shot. I wasn't in a single photograph. 2 days later, Connor showed up on my front porch after school, his backpack still on his shoulders. "I wanted to thank you for the science kit, Grandma," he said, his gap-toothed smile lighting up his whole face. "It was my favorite present." I hugged him so tightly I worried I might crack his ribs. Then he asked the question that broke my heart, "Why didn't you come to my party?" I looked into his innocent brown eyes, Benedict's eyes, and told him the truth. "I wasn't invited, sweetheart." He frowned, confusion creasing his forehead. "But Dad said you didn't feel like coming. He said you were too tired." I didn't correct him. I couldn't put that burden on a 9-year-old's shoulders. Instead, I smiled and said, "Next time, maybe we can have our own little party here. Just you and me." His face lit up. "Can we make the dinosaur cake again?" "You bet we can." That night, I cried harder than I had since my hospital stay. That's when I knew I wasn't just hurt anymore, I was being systematically erased. They weren't just forgetting about me, they were actively rewriting the story of our family, casting me as the grandmother who'd chosen to fade away rather than the one who'd been pushed out. But I had proof now. Documentation. Evidence. And a plan that was slowly taking shape. The plan I'd been forming crystallized into action after one final, crushing betrayal. It came through Michelle again, this time with information that made my hands shake as I held the phone. Rose, you need to know what Pamela did. She told Benedict's boss at the insurance agency that you've been diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's. She said that's why Benedict's been distracted at work lately, the emotional toll of watching his mother decline. Apparently, management bought it and gave him extra flexibility with his schedule. My voice came out as a whisper. That's fraud. It gets worse. She sent a text about it to her mother, but accidentally sent it to me instead. She wrote, Benedict's behind on his quarterly reports again. Told his boss it's because his mom is slipping fast, emotional toll and all that. They bought it completely. LOL. That LOL did something to me I can't adequately describe. I took a screenshot of Michelle's forwarded message, printed it out, and added it to my growing file of evidence: the hospital contact changes, the school removal documentation, my clean cognitive test results, my detailed journal entries, and now proof of their deliberate fraud. I called Harold Brennan. It's time to activate the trust, I said. After a long pause, he asked, Are you certain about this, Rose? I'm adding one more condition. I told him what I wanted. That's quite harsh, he said carefully. It's honest. 1 week later, I hosted a small gathering at my house. Harold, Patricia, Michelle, and Pastor Williams from First Methodist all sat around my dining room table while I signed the final version of my trust and will. The terms were ironclad: everything I owned, my house, my teacher's pension, my savings account, my life insurance policy, would go into a protected trust for Connor and Lily. They couldn't access a penny until they turned 25. But here was the crucial part: if anyone, especially Benedict or Pamela, tried to challenge the trust or claim I was mentally incompetent when I created it, every single dollar would instead go to the Regional Center for Elder Abuse Prevention. I also included a sealed letter to Connor and Lily, to be opened when they came of age. In it, I told them the complete truth, not to poison them against their parents, but to ensure they knew their grandmother had never stopped loving them, even when she'd been forced out of their lives. A month later, the consequences of Benedict and Pamela's deception caught up with them. Benedict lost his job when HR investigated the false claims about my health. Apparently, using a fabricated family medical situation to excuse poor work performance violated several company policies. Pamela's accidental text message had made its way to the right people. When Benedict called me for the first time in over a year, his voice was small and desperate. Mom, I need to talk to you. Things have gotten complicated with work, and I know we haven't been close lately. You lied about me having Alzheimer's to cover your poor job performance, I said calmly. That's not complicated. That's deliberate fraud. He didn't deny it. After a long silence, he said, I lost my job. We're struggling financially. If something ever happens to you, I hope you'll consider helping us out. For the kids' sake. I waited, letting the silence stretch, then delivered the words I'd been preparing for months. There's a trust set up for Connor and Lily. Everything I own is going directly to them. You're not a beneficiary. The silence on his end lasted nearly 30 seconds. You're cutting me out completely? I already did. After everything I've done for you? I almost laughed. Everything you've done for me? You mean abandoning me in the ICU? Telling people I have dementia? Removing me from your children's lives? Replacing me on emergency contact forms? That's what you call everything you've done for me? He started to raise his voice, but I cut him off. You need to look in the mirror, Benedict. I raised you to be better than this. But I'm done waiting for you to remember how to be a son. I hung up. I never heard from him again. It's been 18 months since that final phone call with Benedict, and I can honestly say I've never felt more at peace with my decisions. The consequences of their choices have played out exactly as I expected, though I take no pleasure in their struggles. Pamela left Benedict 6 months after he lost his job. She took Connor and Lily and moved back in with her parents in Waterloo, citing Benedict's instability and inability to provide. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd spent years claiming I was unreliable, only to abandon Benedict the moment he became inconvenient to her plans. Benedict moved to a small apartment across town and attempted to start a lawn care business. It failed within 4 months. Last I heard through Michelle, he's working the night shift at a distribution center in Waterloo, seeing his children every other weekend under court-supervised visitation because Pamela convinced a judge he was emotionally unstable. The children are doing well, according to Michelle, who makes sure I get regular updates and occasional photos. Connor is excelling in 4th grade and still loves science. Lily has started taking piano lessons and apparently has real talent. Michelle visits them when she can and has become something of a bridge between their world and mine, though she's careful not to put the children in the middle of adult conflicts. As for me, I've built a rich, fulfilling life that doesn't depend on waiting for phone calls that never come or invitations that never arrive. Patricia and I have coffee every Saturday morning, sometimes joined by other neighbors who've become genuine friends rather than obligatory family. I volunteer twice a week at the Riverside Women's Shelter, reading stories to children who understand what it means to have your world turned upside down by adults who should protect you. I still get regular checkups with Dr. Peterson, who continues to confirm what I already know: my mind is sharp, my health is stable, and I'm nowhere near the declining, confused woman Pamela painted me to be. Those medical records sit safely in my files, along with all the other documentation I gathered during those dark months. But perhaps most importantly, I continue adding to the memory box I've created for Connor and Lily. Photos from their early years when I was still part of their lives, copies of the birthday cards they made for me, letters I write to them on holidays and special occasions. All of it carefully dated and stored, waiting for the day they're old enough to seek out the truth about what happened to their grandmother. Because that day will come. Children grow up, ask questions, and eventually see through the stories adults tell to justify their actions. When Connor and Lily reach 18, 21, 25, they'll have access not just to their trust funds, but to the complete record of how much their grandmother loved them, even after she was forced out of their lives. The trust Harold created is bulletproof. Benedict and Pamela can't touch it, can't challenge it, can't claim I was incompetent when I made it. Every attempt to do so will only redirect the money to elder abuse prevention, a fitting end to their years of manipulation and lies. Sometimes Patricia asks if I regret the harshness of my decisions. The truth is, I don't regret protecting myself and securing my grandchildren's future. What I regret is that it came to this at all. I regret that the little boy I raised to be kind and honest became a man who would abandon his mother in a hospital bed and lie about her mental health to cover his own failures. But I've learned something important in these 18 months. You can't save people from the consequences of their own choices. You can only make sure those consequences are real and meaningful. When Connor and Lily come of age, they'll inherit more than money. They'll inherit the truth, the complete story of a grandmother who never stopped loving them, even when love wasn't enough to keep her in their lives. They'll have the power to break the cycle of dishonesty and casual cruelty that their parents thought would never catch up with them. And if they choose to find me then, if they want to rebuild what was broken, I'll be here. Still sharp, still strong, still the woman who bakes chocolate chip pancakes on Sunday mornings and believes that family should mean something more than convenience. That's my legacy. Not perfect, perhaps, but honest. And in the end, honesty is the only gift that truly lasts.